like the pine trees lining the winding road. I got a name, I got a name. Hello there, and welcome back to another fountain pen related video. Thanks for watching. My name is Doug, and I have a pen today that I have been really excited about, and I've been waiting for this one for quite a while. This one actually came fairly quickly on its own, but I ordered this pen weeks and weeks ago, and after waiting for almost 3 weeks, I was informed by China Post Tracking that the order was canceled, and I got in contact with the eBay seller, and they said, "Whoops, sorry, that means it's lost somewhere. So would you like to order another one?" Of course, they were out of the color that I was looking for, so I said thank you very much and asked for a refund and got it immediately, and then went to another site on eBay and got the one I wanted, and was promptly told that that was out of stock as well, even though it was listed as being in stock. And I did that 3 times over the course of a couple of days, and finally relented and got a color that it's a picky thing. I wanted the Wing Sung 626 brown with the white dot, and I got Wing Sung 626 brown with the gold dot instead. I know it doesn't make that much difference, but I was looking forward to that pen, and it was lost. So such are the difficulties with dealing with overseas transport. Anyway, this pen came fairly quickly, and let's open it up. And again, as usual, I'll avoid all the crinkling, and we'll do it in fast motion. And here we have a very squashed package. This is the Wing Sung cardboard box, or was. When it left China, I'm sure it was intact. But, and some code numbers here, and we see a date. I've never seen this before. May 18th, 2019. Let's take the rest of this cellophane off. And here we have the crushed box. My heart is in my throat. Let's see what the damage is. There's the pen. And here we are. So I've been excited about this pen because I've been doing a lot of research on the Sheaffer Balance. And the last pen I just looked at was a very, very cheap Jinhao copy. I don't even think it was a Jinhao. But some of the comments on that video raised some concerns about the Chinese copying and ripping off of Western styles and things like that. And a debate ensued, and I have some thoughts on that. And so, as I did with the Parker dual fold history, I'm going to insert some pre-prepared information and research that I've done on the Sheaffer Balance in anticipation of receiving this beautiful pen, and I'll insert that in this video. And of course, you can always skip past that to get the writing sample and so forth. But first off, let's take a look at this pen. It has the classic torpedo shape of a Sheaffer Balance, even down to the dot. I was looking for the white dot just to be more in line with what a Sheaffer Balance originally was. I'm not sure that they actually had gold dots, but the white dot indicated a lifetime warranty from Sheaffer, which I guess didn't amount to much because Sheaffer changed hands quite a bit. I don't know whether they'd still honor that, but this was a very interesting color. There are a number of colors. I'll put up the auction right here and show that there were a variety of colors. available, but I quite like this coffee-colored, mocha-colored, tea-colored, very chatoyant resin. That's quite lovely. I was worried that it might be flat. So the torpedo-shaped cap with the gold dot, and it has the Sheaffer style, the later Sheaffer style clip with the flattened circle on it, 2 gold bands, and the wing sung. It looks like it's stamped into that metal. Is it this way? Yeah, there it is. Wing sung. It's hard for me to see in this light. And then the tapered body down to the classic point. Yes, there are other pens that mimic this design, including Wing Sung and including Pen BBS. This is the Pen BBS 480, which I really love. In fact, I've just ordered one of these in Amber is a Cat, and I think I got the third last one that was available on Etsy after I had ordered this one. Let's take a look at inside. 1, 2, almost 3. And it felt rather sticky right there as well. Might have to lubricate that up. And inside we find the number 6 Wing Sung nib in gold and chrome, and it is marked Wing S, and the Wing Sung logo right there, little heart-shaped breather hole, and an F for fine. And there's the plastic feed, and a concave section, very reminiscent of the Sheaffer Balance, at least the Sheaffer Balance 2 from, I believe, 1999, if my research does me correctly, and it ends in a gold band just before the threads, which are not sharp, but they seem to have material in there. I'm going to clean that out. It might open a little bit better. And down to the torpedo-shaped body, which is slightly bulbous. It goes from low, I can feel it. I'm going to put some measurements up here as well. I can feel it gets bigger there and then goes down. Let's open this up. And we find, an upgraded Wing Sung converter and a metal end to the section. I'm assuming that nib assembly screws into that metal part of the section, and we'll see whether I can get that nib out of there. I'm going to take it apart and clean it out. Let's take that so the soft silicone nipple on there with the metal band for reinforcement, and this metal ended section or converter with the Wing Sung logo. And that's stuck. There we go. I might grease that up too. Yeah, and that whole thing comes apart and needs to be greased up. That's nice for cleaning out. That makes it a lot easier to clean. And of course, this is not eyedropperable because it is a metal section. And nothing else inside of there. Let's look inside the cap. There's no cap liner that I can see, but there is a step right there that the edge of the section will rest against when it's screwed in. So that's very lovely. I'm looking forward to writing with this pen. So what I'll do now is I'm going to take it further apart, clean it out with a little bit of soapy water, and I'm going to ink it up. I think today what I'm going to ink this with, because I'm hoping this is going to be an everyday writer, and one of my everyday inks is Iroshizuku Konpeki. So I'm going to fill it up with some Konpeki. See you soon. Okay, back again here. I've got the pen disassembled, and I've cleaned it out with some soapy water and rinsed it and dried it up. And I was able to get the nib and the nib and the feed out of the section, but I couldn't get that assembly apart. I've got a feeling that that's glued in there, but it's hard to see in there, but the feed has a typical flat spot on it, and it only goes in the section one way. Turn around until it goes in there, because there's a little flat bit right inside there. But what I wanted to look at here was the nib. Now, this is a number 6 size nib, and when I first looked at it, and looking at other people's reviews as well of this pen, I noticed that in comparison to some other nibs, this is fairly beat up, as if it's been in a bin full of other nibs, which I assume is the case, and they all jangle against each other. So I don't like that kind of patina. I thought maybe it should shine up a little bit more. And so what I did was I polished it up with some Meguiar's Mirror Glaze. I use this on guitars. It's silicone free, and it's very mild, and great for taking swirls out of things like acrylic. So if you get any scratches in your acrylic body, you can put a little bit of this stuff on it and rub it gently, and it comes up shining. And I polished that with a Q-tip, and it came up much nicer than it was when it came out of the box. So we put the nib and feed together, find that keyed spot where it only goes in one way, and give it a push. And it's just that easy. I also took the converter apart. It's fairly easy to get apart. It's not so easy to get it back together again, because that little piston right there is really friction fit. But with a little bit of grease on it, it slides beautifully now. And I like this upgraded converter in this pen. This is terrific. So I like that. And the other thing I was going to do is put some silicone grease on these threads and those threads, because they look a bit milky, as if they've still got machining dust or something in there. So just a little bit, just as they used to say in the old days, the bro cream adds a little dabble to you. Those of you that are younger than me will not know that reference. That's fine. So we're going to put a little dab on these threads as well, just a little wee bit. Run that around. Put that together. That feels a lot better. Going in there. And that's much better. Quite a few turns to unscrew, but now what we're going to do is ink it up. And while I'm inking it up, you can look at these comparisons to other pens and some measurements. As promised, here is some history of the Sheaffer Balance. If you wish to move on to the writing sample, just hit the timestamp in the description. Also, I'll be providing some links to the sources for the following information in the description below. The Sheaffer Balance holds a place in fountain pen history because it represents a significant advance in pen design. Before the balance, fountain pens were mostly the same tubular shapes with flat tops and bottoms. However, with the invention of a new plastic material called celluloid, and made under the trade name Pyralin by the DuPont company, Sheaffer was able to produce fountain pens with a much larger variety of colors, but also a new shape. The streamlined torpedo shape of the balance was patented by Sheaffer in December 1928. The tapered ends of the pen allowed the pen to be perfectly balanced in the hand, whether it was posted or not. Being weighted towards the page reduced hand fatigue and allowed the writer to write longer and with less discomfort. Even with the stock market crash of October 1929, the Sheaffer Balance was a huge success, and Sheaffer introduced many different sizes and colors. Some Sheaffer salespersons were actually upset with the balance as they had difficulty in selling off the old tubular square-top pens that they had in their inventory. With all the controversy about the Wing Sung 626 stealing the design of the Sheaffer Balance, it is instructive to know that Sheaffer actually took the design from a competing pen company. Daniel Kirchheimer posits a theory which makes a lot of sense in his 2015 paper on the origin of the Sheaffer Balance. He argues, and successfully, I believe, that Sheaffer lifted the design of the Houston Pen Company's tapered pen, the Houston Snap-Fill. This pen was on the market for a full decade before the Sheaffer Balance went into production, but the design was never patented. In early 1928, a model of fountain pen called the J74TR appeared in Sheaffer's catalog. This pen is nearly identical to the Houston Snap-Fill. Furthermore, Kirchheimer argues that the name Balance was lifted from the Houston Pen Company as well. And as proof, he provides this advertisement from 1915. Intriguing stuff, huh? The Balance was produced by Sheaffer from 1929 until around 1941, when it was replaced by other pen models, including the Triumph. In 1998, as part of the company's 100th anniversary, it was revived as the Balance II. Sadly, the company has not been as innovative or successful as in its heyday. In 1997, the company was purchased by the French pen company Bic for $50 million. By 2008, Sheaffer had shut down its U.S. operation and moved its manufacturing to, well, guess where? China. In 2014, Bic sold Sheaffer to the Cross Pen Company for $15 million. Fountain pens bearing the Sheaffer brand are still made, but in my opinion, there is nothing in the modern lineup that is even remotely as elegant or as classic as the Sheaffer Balance, or their equally elegant, again in my opinion, the Sheaffer Imperial. Okay, here we are back a couple of days later. I've written with the Wing Sung 626 for a couple of days, a few hours of writing, and it was very interesting when I first inked this pen up and put nib to paper. It was very disappointing. The line was thin, and it was very, very, very dry. And I thought, wow, this is really awful. And then I gave the nib a bit of a shove after I'd taken it apart. I didn't put it all the way back in with the feed all the way back in and the nib all the way back in. It went back in with a little bit of a click, and then it just gushed. This is a really wet pen. So let's do a writing sample here. This is the Wing Sung. .626. This is a fine nib, but it doesn't write like a fine nib. It writes more like a fine to medium, I would think. And the ink that is in this is a Roshizuku. I always have to get this spelling right. Konpeki. And look how wet that is. This is still wet here. And because it's so wet, the Konpeki has quite a bit of sheen to it. So the red sheen in the Konpeki really comes out. The nib is very smooth. With just a hint of feedback. Let's listen to it. It's very nice. Reverse writing. It is very scratchy, but you get a very thin line. Very, very scratchy. You can push the nib a little bit, but it's already very, very wet. And there's not a lot of variation because it's already fairly thick. Fast writing. Again, it's keeping up very well. So, what can I say about this pen? The first thing I've got to note, there's a couple of things I have to note. I'm going to show a close-up picture of this, but there's some corrosion on the back of the clip, which is really quite ugly. It might just be this pen, but it seems a bit shoddy. Also, that the pen does not post, and this is kind of a major drawback, even though I don't post my pens all that often. But the whole point of the Sheaffer Balance is that it was balanced. It was a torpedo-shaped pen that was well balanced, and all of the ads of the time showed how you could write with it and not lose track of your cap, because it was, when capped, so well balanced. Well, this just falls right off. So if they're going to copy the Sheaffer Balance this closely in terms of dimensions, why don't they make it post? I don't get that. So that to me is a pretty big drawback. Plus the disappointment in that clip. You wonder whether the rest of it's going to corrode or tarnish like that. The nib is a delight, though. And speaking of writing with it, because it is so short in the hand here, and the section is so short, I can't complain about the design because they've absolutely copied the vintage section of a Sheaffer Balance. But it's very small for my liking, and so I'm having to write with it down here and putting my thumb back here to write with it so that it's a little bit more area to work with. If it posted, it would feel a little bit better in the hand, actually, when I write with it back there, but it doesn't. So you can't complain. The design is from the Sheaffer Balance, and looks like the dimensions are almost exact. The nib, the two-tone nib, is very nice. I've shined it up. So I've enjoyed writing with it, but when it comes down to it, I think this pen does a better job at taking the design of the Sheaffer Balance and improving it into the 21st century. This is the Pen BBS 480, and it does post, and it posts securely and fairly deeply. The section is concave, has a small lip, has the band at this end, and is longer. And this pen just feels more comfortable posted and unposted in my hand. And this pen, this model, can be had for $17.99. So at $28.99, I'm wondering whether this is much of a value. So before I get too far into that, let's do an evaluation. This is how I evaluate. I evaluate 4 categories: build and design, writing, and feel, the overall look of the pen, and the overall value. Each of these categories is out of 4, with 4 being perfection, 3 being above average, 2 being a pass, 1 being a failure, and 0 being absolute no-show. So, in terms of build and design, the design is the Sheaffer Balance, with the exception that they couldn't get it to post. So if you followed the design characteristics and the specs of the original pen, it should post. And also, I'm suspect of the quality, the build quality of this, compared to, say, a pen BBS, the quality I'm expecting from a Chinese fountain pen at this price level. So I'm going to give it a couple of knocks for not posting and having some of that corrosion on the cap. So 2. Also, I should note that I wrote with it late last night, and then when I got to it this afternoon, it had completely dried out, even though it was full of ink. And I just opened it up and, turn the nib down and prime that converter to pump a little bit more ink into the feed, and it wrote again. But even just now, I got a hard start there too. So that worries me. In terms of writing and feel, the feel would be better if it posted, and because it's just a little bit short in my hand. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 4 for that. In terms of the look, I'm not going to ding it at all. It's just gorgeous. The resin here and the chatoyancy in it is just beautiful. And with the gold appointments, it is really a lovely looking pen. So 4 out of 4 for look. In terms of value, however, the pen is $28.95, I think. I'm just going off there's another hard start. US. Now, that's a bit on high end in my mind, for a Wing Sung, even though it's got nice materials and so forth. Especially when for $17.95 US, you can get the pen BBS for $80. So I'm going to ding it once, just because I feel that it's slightly overpriced for what you get. It is a beautiful fountain pen, however. So let's go 3 out of 4 for that. It gives us 12 out of 16, which is a good pass. I was excited to get this pen. I was fascinated to go through the Sheaffer Balance history. And maybe one of these days I'll get myself a Sheaffer Balance and see whether it feels any different in the hand. It certainly is an intriguing prospect. Something to look forward to, as a friend of mine always says. So, as always, thank you for watching. And that's all she wrote. Moving ahead so life won't pass me by.